This is your childhood dream to become a...
Yeah, I guess it happened over a period of time, but I had been at it for like some 7-8 years.
Okay.
I had done film workshops, I had done direction workshops, I had done screenwriting workshops with some instructors from FTII and NSD and all that.
Hi everybody, I'm Gurveen and I work as an editor at Penguin Books, and I have with me Issac. He's consumer marketing professional by day and author by night. He's actually worked with a couple of cool brands as the marketing head. He's worked with Puma and with Eltify Me, and right now he's with Discovery. So in the month of November last year, he did a collection of short stories called Buffering Love. Do you want to tell us a bit about that? How did the concept strike you?
Sure. So Buffering Love was initially conceptualized as a collection called Connected, which was about how in our lives we just use apps. And I think what was happening is that at that point of time I was using a lot of apps, and I think the degrees of separation between me and let's say even a stranger were just like drastically reduced. You stay at an Airbnb apartment, just on a whim and a fancy and a few reviews that you read on a site, and suddenly you actually have a relationship with that person socially. So
and
I think
it's also fleeting. It's there today, not there tomorrow.
Yeah, it's also very fleeting. It's pretty ephemeral. So I guess the world that I was suddenly inhabiting because of Uber and Airbnb and WhatsApp and Netflix and all that, I was just realizing that I was using a lot of these apps. And yeah, I think, and also the way I was writing anything, I was figuring that the characters were also interacting with each other through apps. So I thought that it would be nice to keep an app as a centerpiece in a story, and I wrote a few short stories, and those are the first ones that I sent to you, and you said, yeah, let's develop this into...
Yeah, we'll get to that later. I think.
But yeah, that's how it came about.
No, but you also say, I think in an interview you say that this book happened more by way of accident than,
yes.
It wasn't planned or anything.
Yes.
So how did that happen?
It wasn't. I actually wanted to write a really good screenplay. I thought that the quality of the average Bollywood screenplay that's written left a lot wanting, and that really was a driving factor for me because, I think all of us, we spend so much time and money on weekends, on going to watch a film, and often you come out, and I think it's generally with any creative output, the last 10 films that I think I or most of my friends saw, only 2 were really good on an average, 3 were middle of the road, and 5 of them would be really bad. And I felt, well, if those 8 sort of not so great films and mediocre films can get made, maybe I should take a shot at it. So that's why I wanted to actually write a screenplay, which is what I gave a shot at. I wrote 3
This is your childhood dream to become?
Yeah, I guess it happened over a period of time, but I had been at it for like some 7-8 years. I had done film workshops, I had done direction workshops, I had done screenwriting workshops with some instructors from FTII and NSD and all that. And I think every workshop I did, I felt like, I can improve this craft better. I love this field. I love writing. I love, thinking what a character wants and whether he gets it or doesn't get it. So, so I started with that. I wrote 3 screenplays for 6 months of my sabbatical year, but none of them really landed. And I did my bit in pitching, etc. And then I felt, well, this is not working. I anyway was loving the writing process. Why don't I write a novel? And I think I wrote a novel, but I did not like it. I did not like it as any of my previous 3 screenplays. So that's when I thought that, okay, now the only thing that's left is short stories. Why don't I try? I also did try my hand at stand-up as well, and
Really?
Yeah. So I tried all.
You have to do a demo at the end of this.
It's a bad stand-up, I must. So I did bad stand-up. And then I felt, okay, now I think short stories and poetry is left. Yeah. Poetry is not my cup of tea. Let me try short stories. And I think I enjoyed short stories. I really loved short stories when I was a kid.
But the sad part is they don't sell in India.
They don't sell.
I think when you came to me, because the concept was so interesting, I couldn't say no.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad to hear that.
No, but I think your career as a marketing professional also helps because right now you're doing something really interesting in promoting the book. You have this hashtag 27 months of buffering love, and you're putting a picture a day talking about how this book came into being.
True.
How has that been received?
So here's what I think. So a lot of my friends or whoever now I'm meeting socially because of this book, I think everyone tells me, how did you come about writing this book? And I think at least in my journey, and I've sort of, when I go to these lit fairs, I hear other authors, and I realize that I think every author has a very unique journey of getting to a particular point, and no writer's journey is a replica of another's. And I think I had something unique to share because from where I started out 2.5 years ago to what shape it has taken right now, I felt that there were like ebbs and flows and crests and troughs, and I thought it will be interesting to sort of just document the whole thing. And I didn't want to make it boring, so I thought, I think if it is visual, it sort of lends itself well. So that's how I started it. So it's a very short 30 slide sort of a PDF about one picture for every month, representative of the kind of state of mind that I was in and what I was really doing, and when I got the first Penguin contract and how I did not read it, and things.
You've taken pictures of everything, of the contract.
Yeah.
It's actually helping now.
Yeah, it's all helping now. So yeah, so now it's almost done. Actually, I'm done with that piece, and I'm looking to share that with whoever wants to use that journey, to readers who either pick up the book or don't pick up the book. It doesn't matter. I think I just want to.
So a lot of aspiring authors will take so much inspiration from that, because you're really showing them the journey of what it takes from like being rejected so many times to actually like having a book in your hand.
Yeah.
So like if we were to go back in time and talk about how you were staying in Bangalore, you had a flourishing job, and then you suddenly moved to Brooklyn, and you have to stay in this really tiny apartment. And, I think you'd taken up a screenwriting course.
Yeah. So I went to New York Film Academy for like 3 months because that's the only course I could afford with my life savings. So that says a lot about what I had done till that point of time. And it was not a tiny flat in Brooklyn. It was actually a tiny room in Brooklyn. So again on Airbnb, you essentially go by the reviews, and a few of them had said small. So I think the funny thing is that small has different connotation in different parts of the world. What is small in Bangalore and what is small in Brooklyn was really like different. I think there are degrees to small in different geographies, which I should have known. But when I first entered the apartment, I was like, I left all of this for this room. And so I did that. So thankfully I had that really ghastly room for only a month. And then I knew better to sort of move to a better room. But yeah, it did strike me that what I'm doing this for. But I think the universe just gives you signs. So I went to the New York Film Academy. I think that experience was brilliant. Yeah. My professor was from University of Southern California. He was Shonda Rhimes' classmate.
Oh wow!
He was mentored by Mardik Martin, who had worked on Taxi Driver. So suddenly I'm like, well, the room doesn't matter anymore. Like
you're getting to be around these.
Yeah. So I think that just blew my mind away, and I sort of got over that rather soon.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Were you able to like write a couple of screenplays and show it to them for feedback?
Yes,
what was the kind of feedback that you got from them?
Yes, so Professor Ben Moranis is the person who actually worked on my first screenplay, and I think it's one of the better things that I have written apart from Connected as a collection. The feedback was it's just amazing because you have so much of creative liberty when you're at the writing stage, and I think the one thing that struck me was that as a writer you always have to make creative choices, and I think every page, what does a hero say, where does he enter, what state of his mind he is in, and I think what he pushed me to think is essentially on every page. He always says that every scene needs to have 5 things: who wants what the most, how is he getting prevented, what will solve it. And I think the more you ingrain all of these 5 questions in each and every scene, the tighter every page becomes. And I think that sort of transfer of knowledge, and to do that every page is such a great, solid challenge. So yeah, I love that process.
So then you come back to India and you have a first draft of Buffering Love ready. It was called Connected then.
Yeah.
And then you start doing the rounds of the Bangalore Literature Festival.
Yes.
What happened then?
So before that, I had written to every book agent in town. I had written to every...
You're the classic story of like...
Yeah. So it is. So before that, so even that screenplay, I had written to like Yash Raj, and because of Puma, I knew like a lot of these people. So I would always get an audience, but I would never hear back. The only person who sort of got back to me, and I tweet to like random directors, etc. 2 things happened. One, I tweeted to like after like getting through exhausting each and every sort of credible production house in Bombay, I was like really at a loss of people to reach out to. So I reached out to some 20 directors on Twitter.
Oh God.
And Rajat Kapoor tweeted back saying that send me your screenplay. So I was like surprised. Why is he interested? But he's such a nice professional that he read that very first screenplay I had written with Professor Ben, and he gave me very constructive feedback. Wow. He of course butchered me in the course of a 2-hour discourse.
But he has a lot of time.
But primarily, no, because he also told me, he said, look, it might sound very strange, and he's a 2-time National Award winner, and he's like, don't worry, I'm also in the same boat as you. I also struggle to get my movies made. So he said, so I really wanted him to play the protagonist. So he said, I don't have time because I'm working on ABC projects. These are all stuff that I have written. But I think that meeting, he said that Isaac, you can write, just keep at it. And that's all he said. And after
that's all you need.
And that's all I did. That's the only validation I needed. And then I was like, yes, I can write. And that's when I did the stand-up bit. That didn't work
You
out.
can't do everything.
Yeah. So then when Connected happened, again did the same process of, because till then I had never reached out to any publisher. Then I reached out to publishers, I Googled, I did it, I left stuff with Penguin, HarperCollins Group, everyone. And I never heard back. Most of them actually said no. Penguin, I hadn't heard back. But that time at the literature festival, I see that all these editors were there. So I made like this one little pamphlet and basically would reach out to everyone. Millie was actually the last person from Penguin that I reached out to at that festival. And I was like, Christmas is coming, I'm done, whatever. And somehow she whatever she saw, she said, send me an email, and that's how she connected me to you.
I think she passed on the book to me saying, why don't you give it a read?
Yeah.
And I read the basic draft that you'd sent me, and I obviously had like a completely different idea for the book. I liked the concept that you'd sent me, but I felt that because it was too westernized for an Indian audience, and I loved that you were so open to feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, the book that you have now is a completely you had to like completely rewrite it.
It is a different draft altogether, almost a new book actually.
So how open you are to feedback? I know you are.
Very. I'm always open to feedback because one of the things that especially in marketing that we always realize is that an iteration is always a good thing as long as the feedback is coming from credible people. And I think with the sort of intellectual capital and experience that you guys have back at Penguin, obviously you know what makes a book really work, and I was very open to changing it or reworking it. So even to this day, like even when I always ask people, what's the story you like the most and what's the story you don't like the most, because I really want to know what is it that appeals to people. So very open.
Do you have people around you who give you feedback? Do you send it to a group of friends before you send it to me?
Yeah. So I have like a group of about 3 or 4 people who I think will just tell it to my face that this works or this doesn't work. And like like my second one also I've already sent you saying that how is this landing, not landing. So there's that core group of 3 to 5 people.
That's nice. It's always good to have these people around. Okay, now coming back to the title of the book, it was initially called Connected. How did you come up with Buffering Love?
Again, it was a iterative process, I think.
We had about, 20 to 30 odd titles that we were negotiating.
We set out a list of about 10 to 12 names, and then you said we would probably zero down to 5. I think there was something that I think you were recommending. There was something else that I was recommending, and we said that let's go to
Love
the readers.
Love at First Click was
Love at First Click was one, and Connected. Connected wasn't one. Now I don't remember. The Under the Cloud was one that because I thought cloud technology you should be able, but it was again probably too intelligent. But I love the input that you gave, saying that if you want this book to sell, I think let's make it very obvious that these are stories about relationships. And then again, I think if you remember, I always said that okay, I know you like this, I like this, but let me just do like an independent survey, and we did this one scratch hack of a survey, and then we selected the one which was closest to more acceptability, I guess.
Yeah, I think it works.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the book design, I think it goes with the title of the book.
Yeah, and everyone sort of, even this morning, Novo Neil, and I think at the Bombay event, I think everybody is almost like talking about the title of the book as a conversation starter itself, saying that why the name, and also I think it says Buffering Love, so it's like it's not yet done. There is some hope, so I think people are.
Do you want to talk about the plot device that you've used in the book, where you have a recurring character?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that? That's very interesting.
So I remember like when I was pitching this book to you, and we said that we'll have one app, etc., etc. You were all you had bought into the concept, but the moment I said that, and you know what, Gurveen, I will try and see if I can have a recurring character or an overlapping character in each of those, and I saw your eyes go light up.
I said that's impossible. I mean, how can you do that?
And then you said that should not be your first get, but if you can do that, it'll be great. And I think just the fact that I think both you and Suhail sort of looked at it and said that it's a possibility, and it's something that sort of generally lit up the
I don't know how many readers have noticed that.
They have actually. All the reviews that I'm getting on Amazon, if you see, they are saying that. Both on Goodreads and Amazon.
We have intelligent readers now.
Yeah. I think the only one that I want readers to get, which I think they are not picking up, is that the dog in the first story.
Don't say it. You're ruining it for people who haven't read the book.
Okay, fine. Yeah. But I think people are noticing it. Yeah.
So, what are the kind of writers that you read while you were growing up?
When I was growing up, actually, it was a lot of. I actually did read a lot of short stories when I was growing up. I read a lot of Chekhov and Maupassant and Saki and O. Henry. O. Henry was actually my.
I think for most people.
Favorite, yeah. Especially short stories, right?
And they're so simple.
Yeah. But other than that, I specifically used to read a lot of P.G. Wodehouse. I think P.G. Wodehouse was like a clear favorite. And of course, I used to also consume a lot of films and even across different, not just books, right? I thought the way Herge would just construct like a Tintin series and, from start to finish, in a genre that's like in a detective investigative journalism kind of space.
You're a big Calvin and Hobbes fan, no?
Big Calvin and Hobbes fan. I have every panel that, Bill Watterson has ever drawn.
So you obviously are going to write more.
Yes.
You see it as not a full-time profession. It can't because you don't earn any money on it. I shouldn't have said it. but yeah, where do you go from here? You've sent me a couple of concepts to look at, which I'm going to get back to you with. But do you know what exactly? Are you going to write more short stories? Will you dabble in fiction? Or?
Yeah, I think I want to gradually do transition into a fiction, and I think what I'm liking about the entire book, novel, universe space is the creative liberty around it, right? I think in film there's just so much of a collaborative process that by the time I think it comes in, there's just too many influences. But I think with a book or a novel, it's primarily like an editor, author, sort of a very close-knit sort of a creative process. And I think I really enjoyed also crafting short stories in general. And I think, and funnily, last year at the Bangalore Literature Festival that you mentioned, there were like not one short story collection. This year, I saw some 7 or 8 authors all bringing short story collections. So I'm wondering if there is like some sort of a general resurgence or acceptance of the fact that, with our attention spans, I think maybe it is. So my next book that I'm at least working on is again in the short story space. But I also have my sights on like writing a full-length novel as well in probably the next couple of years.
I look forward to that whenever you do write it.
Yeah.
And it was lovely having you.
Thank you.
So glad to see you here.
Thank you.
And good luck with your time in Bombay. You're going to be here for good now.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's Buffering Love is available at a bookstore near you. Go buy.
Yeah. Thank you for doing